She walked into my office 5 years after destroying our marriage, pretending not to recognize me. But when I saw the little girl waiting in the lobby with my eyes and my stubborn cowlick, I realized my ex-wife had been hiding the biggest secret of all. Now someone else knows too. My name is Grant Dalton. I'm 42 years old, and I work as a talent acquisition director for Northwest Logistics here in Portland. It's a decent gig, steady pay, good benefits, and most days I get to help people find their next career move. What I didn't expect was for my ex-wife to become one of those people. 5 years. That's exactly how long it had been since our divorce was finalized. 5 years since Shelley walked out of our life together and into the arms of some consultant named Kevin Morse. 5 years of rebuilding myself from the ground up, climbing the corporate ladder, and learning to sleep alone again. And then, on a rainy Tuesday morning in October, she walked into my conference room for a job interview, completely unaware that I was now the hiring manager. I recognized her immediately, of course. You don't forget the woman you spent 8 years married to, even when she's traded her casual jeans for business attire and styled her auburn hair in a way I'd never seen before. But the funny thing was, she didn't seem to recognize me at all. Not first, anyway. Ms. Brennan. I called from the doorway, keeping my voice steady and professional. She looked up from her phone with those same green eyes that used to watch me shave in the bathroom mirror every morning. Yes, that's me, she replied, standing and extending her hand with a practiced smile. The handshake lasted exactly 3 seconds. I counted. Her grip was firm, confident, nothing like the uncertain woman who used to ask me to check the locks twice before bed. I'm Grant Dalton, Director of Talent Acquisition, I said, leading her into the conference room. Thank you for coming in today. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Dalton, she responded, settling into the chair across from me. If she recognized my name or my face, she was doing a remarkable job hiding it. I opened her file, though I'd already memorized every line of her resume. Operations coordinator position. 3 years of recent experience at a smaller firm. References that checked out clean. No mention of her previous married name or any connection to our shared past. So, Shelley, may I call you Shelley? I asked, testing the waters. Of course, she nodded, crossing her legs and folding her hands in her lap. The same gesture she used to make when she was nervous, but trying to appear confident. Tell me what interests you about Northwest Logistics, I continued, watching her face carefully for any flicker of recognition. She launched into a well-rehearsed answer about company culture and growth opportunities. Professional, polished, completely detached from the woman who used to steal my hoodies and leave coffee rings on the kitchen table. As she talked, I found myself studying the subtle changes 5 years had brought. She was thinner now, more angular. Her laugh lines had deepened, but there were new worry lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. She wore a simple gold band on her right hand, not the engagement ring I'd saved 3 months to buy, but something newer, something that probably meant something to someone else. 20 minutes into the interview, I made my decision. Not the smart decision, not the professional decision, but the decision that would either give me closure or destroy everything I'd built since she left. Welcome to Northwest Logistics, Shelley, I said, extending my hand across the table. When can you start? Shelley started the following Monday, and I watched her navigate the office like she was walking through a minefield. She kept her head down, spoke only when spoken to, and seemed determined to blend into the background. It might have worked too, if Derek Vance hadn't spotted her first. Derek was our senior account executive, smooth talker, expensive suits, and the kind of confidence that made weak men follow him and smart men avoid him. He had a talent for reading people and an even better talent for using what he learned against them. I'd seen him work his magic on clients, employees, and more than a few married women over the years. Well, Derek said, sliding up beside me at the coffee machine. Looks like you hired yourself some serious eye candy, Grant. I kept my expression neutral, adding cream to my coffee with steady hands. Ms. Brennan is qualified for the position, Derek. That's all that matters. Derek chuckled, the sound carrying that edge he got when he smelled opportunity. Brennan. Now where have I heard that name before? My jaw tightened involuntarily. Derek was like a shark. Once he caught the scent of blood in the water, he didn't let go. It's a common name, I replied, turning to head back to my office. Maybe, Derek said, following me with his coffee. but something about her seems familiar. The way she carries herself. Maybe. Or those eyes. Definitely memorable eyes. I stopped at my door, facing him directly. Derek, let me be clear about something. Ms. Brennan is here to do a job, and I expect everyone on this team to treat her with the same professionalism we extend to all employees. He raised his hands in mock surrender. Of course, boss. Professional to the core. That's me. His smile told a different story. Later that afternoon, I was reviewing quarterly reports when Sarah knocked on my door. Mr. Dalton, there's a woman here to see Shelley. I mean, Ms. Brennan. Says she's picking her up. I looked up to see a young woman in the lobby, maybe early 20s, with auburn hair and familiar green eyes. But what stopped me cold was the little girl beside her, maybe 3 years old, with curly brown hair and a face that looked like someone had taken my childhood photos and put them in a blender with Shelley's features. Tell Ms. Brennan her ride is here. I managed to say, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. As Shelley walked toward the lobby, the little girl broke free from the young woman's hand and ran straight to her. Mommy, she called out, her voice carrying across the open floor plan. Shelley scooped up the child, and I watched them together through the glass partition. The resemblance was unmistakable, not just to Shelley, but to me. The girl had my nose, my stubborn cowlick, even the way I used to scrunch my face when I was thinking hard about something. Cute kid. Derek's voice came from behind me. I hadn't heard him approach. Looks familiar, too, now that I think about it. I turned to find him studying my face with that predatory interest he got when he discovered something useful. What are you getting at, Derek? He shrugged, but his eyes never left mine. Nothing specific, just interesting how some people find their way into our little family here. Makes you wonder what other surprises might be walking through our doors. As I watched Shelley leave with the child and the young woman, one thought kept hammering through my head. That little girl was 3 years old. And 3 years ago, Shelley and I were still married. That weekend, I couldn't get the image of that little girl out of my head. Ashley, I'd overheard Shelley call her. 3 years old with my stubborn cowlick and green eyes that matched her mother's. I'd spent Saturday morning doing something I never thought I'd do, digging through old photos, looking for similarities. Monday morning brought clarity in the worst possible way. Derek cornered me before I'd even finished my first cup of coffee. Grant, buddy, we need to talk, Derek said, sliding into my office and closing the door behind him. About your new hire. I set down my mug carefully, keeping my voice level. What about her? Derek pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Shelley and Ashley leaving the building Friday afternoon. Cute kid. But here's what's interesting. He swiped to another photo, this one clearly taken from his car. I followed them to the parking lot. Got a better look. My hands clenched in a fist under my desk. You followed them. Just curious. Derek shrugged. And my curiosity paid off. That little girl looks exactly like someone I know. Someone who's sitting right across from me. I stood up slowly, using every ounce of self-control to keep from grabbing Derek by his expensive tie. What do you want, Derek? His smile was pure predator. Nothing complicated. Just a little cooperation. See, I've been wanting to get closer to Ms. Brennan. Maybe take her out for drinks, show her around Portland. But she seems a bit standoffish. She's a professional woman doing her job. Right, Derek nodded. But maybe her boss could encourage her to be more social. Team building, you know. And in return, maybe her personal life stays personal. The threat was crystal clear. Derek had figured out that Ashley might be my daughter, and he was planning to use that information as leverage. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated how far I was willing to go to protect what was mine. Derek, I said, walking around my desk to stand directly in front of him, let me make something very clear. If you go anywhere near Shelley Brennan or her daughter, if you so much as look at them wrong, I will destroy you. Not fire you, destroy you. Your reputation, your career, your future. Do we understand each other? Derek's confident smile faltered slightly. Grant, I think you're misunderstanding, Dash. No misunderstanding. I cut him off. That's a promise. And I'm a man who keeps his promises. Derek left my office looking less sure of himself, but I knew this was far from over. Men like Derek didn't back down from a challenge. They just got more creative about their approach. I had to find out the truth about Ashley before Derek did something that would hurt all of us. By Wednesday, Derek had made his move. I watched from my office as he approached Shelley's desk with 2 cups of coffee and his most charming smile. She looked up from her computer, clearly surprised by the attention. Ms. Brennan, Derek said, his voice carrying across the open floor plan. I brought you something to help with the afternoon slump. Shelley accepted the coffee politely. That's very thoughtful, Mr. Vance. Thank you. Please, call me Derek. We're all family here. He perched on the edge of her desk, invading her personal space in a way that made my jaw clench. I was thinking maybe I could show you some of Portland's hidden gems. There's this great little jazz club downtown Dash. That's kind of you, Shelley interrupted, but I don't really go out much. I have responsibilities at home. Derek's eyes lit up with interest. Right, your daughter. Ashley, isn't it? Beautiful little girl. She must be what, 3? 4? I was out of my chair and crossing the floor before I'd even made a conscious decision. Several employees looked up as I approached, sensing the tension in my stride. Derek, I said, my voice carrying authority that made conversation stop throughout the office. Don't you have the Morrison account presentation to prepare? Derek straightened, his smile never wavering. Just being friendly to our newest team member, Grant. Making sure she feels welcome. I'm sure Ms. Brennan appreciates the gesture, I replied, positioning myself between Derek and Shelley's desk. But I believe the Morrison presentation is due tomorrow morning. The message was clear, and Derek was smart enough to read it. He stood up, straightening his tie. Of course. Duty calls. He turned to Shelley. Rain check on that coffee date. After Derek left, Shelley looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Thank you, Mr. Dalton. He seemed persistent. Derek can be overwhelming, I said carefully. If he bothers you again, let me know immediately. She nodded, then hesitated. Mr. Dalton, can I ask you something? Do we know each other? From before, I mean. You seem familiar, and some of the things Derek said. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, the moment of truth. I could tell her everything, or I could keep playing this dangerous game. I don't think so. I lied, hating myself for it. Portland's a small city. Maybe we crossed paths somewhere. But as I walked back to my office, I caught Derek watching us from across the room, that calculating look in his eyes. He knew something was up, and he wasn't going to let go. That evening, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out the truth about Ashley, even if it meant crossing lines I'd never crossed before. Thursday night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed Shelley home. Not like Derek with his sleazy photography. I kept my distance, told myself I was just making sure she got home safely. But the truth was darker. I needed to see where Ashley lived, needed to understand the life Shelley had built without me. Their apartment complex was modest but clean, the kind of place where young families scraped by on hope and determination. I watched from my car as Shelley carried Ashley up the stairs to apartment 2B. Through the thin walls, I could hear Ashley's laughter echoing across the parking lot. That's when I saw him, Kevin Morse, walking up those same stairs with a bag of takeout and a key ring. He let himself into 2B like he belonged there, like he was family. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Kevin was still in the picture, still playing house with my ex-wife and the little girl who might be my daughter. Friday morning brought Derek's next move. He cornered Shelley at the elevator, his smile predatory and confident. Ready for that drink tonight? Derek asked, stepping closer as the elevator doors closed behind them. I told you, Mr. Vance, I don't go out, Shelley replied, her voice strained. Come on, Shelley. Everyone needs to unwind. Besides, Derek's voice dropped lower. I think we have more in common than you realize. I was waiting when the elevator opened on the 3rd floor. Derek's face fell when he saw me standing there, arms crossed. Derek, I said calmly, my office. Now, once the door closed behind us, I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I warned you to stay away from her. Derek's confidence returned. And I warned you that I want cooperation. Here's the thing, Grant. I did some digging last night. Ashley Brennan, born March 15th, 3.5 years ago. That puts conception right around June of your marriage year. My blood turned to ice. Now, Derek continued, you can either help me get close to Shelley, or I can share some very interesting timeline calculations with HR. And maybe with Kevin Morse, too. Wonder how he'd feel knowing his girlfriend's kid might not be his. The room went silent, except for the sound of my heartbeat thundering in my ears. Derek had just threatened to destroy not just my career, but Ashley's entire family structure. I looked at Derek, really looked at him, and made a decision that would change everything. You know what, Derek? I said, my voice deadly calm. You're absolutely right. We should cooperate. His smile was triumphant. Now you're being smart. But Derek had no idea what kind of cooperation I had in mind. And by the time he figured it out, it would be too late. Derek left my office thinking he'd won. He had no idea I'd spent 3 years in Army intelligence before my corporate career, or that I still had friends in very useful places. By lunchtime, I had Derek's complete digital footprint spread across my desk like a battlefield map. Tax records showing unreported income. Hotel receipts from business trips that never happened. Most damning of all, email threads with competitors, selling Northwest Logistics client information for cash payments. Derek Vance wasn't just a predator. He was a criminal. I made copies of everything, then called Derek back to my office at 3 p.m. Sit down, I said, not looking up from my computer. Derek sauntered in, still riding high on his perceived victory. So about tonight. I was thinking you could suggest to Shelley that team drinks are mandatory. Derek, I interrupted, sliding a manila folder across my desk. Open that. His confidence evaporated as he flipped through the pages. Bank statements, email printouts, hotel receipts. The color drained from his face. Where did you get this? He whispered. That's not important, I replied, leaning back in my chair. What's important is that corporate espionage is a federal crime. 20 years in prison minimum. Derek's hand shook as he set down the folder. Grant, you don't understand, I understand perfectly. I cut him off. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign, effective immediately. Personal reasons. You're going to disappear from Shelley's life completely. And if I ever see you within 100 yards of her or Ashley, these documents go straight to the FBI. You can't prove I don't need to prove anything to ruin your life, I said quietly. But yes, I can prove it. Bank deposits matching the exact amounts of information you sold. Your digital fingerprints all over unauthorized server access. Want me to continue? Derek slumped in his chair, defeated. What about my severance? My references? You'll get standard severance. As for references, I suggest you pray I never get a call about you. I stood up, walked to my door, and opened it. Clean out your desk. Security will escort you out in 30 minutes. After Derek left, I sat alone in my office, staring at the photograph of Ashley I'd printed from Derek's phone. My daughter. I was sure of it now. But knowing the truth and acting on it were two different things. Kevin was raising her as his own. Shelley had built a life without me. Did I have the right to destroy their peace for my own selfish need to know? The answer came that evening when Shelley knocked on my office door. She was holding a small envelope, her hands trembling slightly. Mr. Dalton, she said quietly, I think it's time we talked. I gestured for Shelley to sit down, my hand surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. She placed the envelope on my desk, but didn't open it yet. I recognized you the moment I walked in here, she said quietly. Grant Dalton, my ex-husband, sitting across from me like some cosmic joke. Why didn't you say anything? Shelley looked down at her hands. Because I was terrified. Terrified you'd figure out the truth about Ashley. The words hung between us like a loaded gun. I reached for the envelope, but she stopped me. Before you open that, I need you to understand something, Shelley said, her voice stronger now. I didn't come here to hurt you or disrupt your life. I came because Ashley deserves to know her real father. My throat went dry. Her real father? Kevin isn't Ashley's biological father, Grant. You are. She pushed the envelope toward me. That's a paternity test I had done last month. 99.7% probability. I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Medical documents, lab results, charts and numbers that confirmed what my heart had known the moment I saw Ashley's stubborn cowlick. What? I managed to ask. Why didn't you tell me when she was born? Tears started flowing down Shelley's cheeks. Because I was scared. We were fighting constantly those last few months of our marriage. You were working 16-hour days. I was feeling invisible. And when I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know how to tell you. So you had an affair instead? No, she said firmly. Kevin came later. After I left. The affair happened after I was already pregnant. After I'd already decided I couldn't stay married to someone who didn't seem to want me anymore. I leaned back in my chair, processing this bombshell. You left because you were pregnant with my child? I left because I was a coward, Shelley admitted. I convinced myself you'd be better off without the burden of an unwanted pregnancy. I told myself I was protecting you. From what? From having to choose between your career and your family. You were so focused on climbing the corporate ladder, and I was afraid a baby would feel like an anchor. I stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the Portland skyline. You made that choice for both of us. I know, and I've regretted it every single day for 3.5 years. I turned back to face her. What about Kevin? Does he know? He knows Ashley isn't his biologically. He's been wonderful about it, but lately... She trailed off. Lately what? He's been pushing for marriage, for making it official. And I realized I couldn't say yes without you knowing the truth. Ashley deserves to know her real father, even if it complicates everything. I looked at the paternity test results again, then at the woman who'd held this secret for years. What do you want from me, Shelley? I want you to meet your daughter. Really meet her. Not as my boss, not as some stranger, but as her father. The simple request hit me like a freight train. Everything I'd thought I knew about the past 3 years had just exploded. I sat in stunned silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Ashley was my daughter, my blood, my genes, my stubborn cowlick. 3.5 years of her life that I'd missed because Shelley had been too afraid to tell me the truth. Grant. Shelley's voice broke through my mental fog. Say something, please. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who'd walked out of my life was asking me to walk into my daughter's. Does Ashley know about me? She knows her mommy used to be married to someone else. She's asked questions, but I told her it was complicated. Shelley wiped her eyes. She's smart, Grant. Smarter than either of us were at handling this situation. What does Kevin think about all this? Kevin knows I had to tell you. He's not happy about it, but he understands. He loves Ashley, and he wants what's best for her. Shelley paused. He's also terrified you try to take her away. I stood up and paced to the window again. 3.5 years of bedtime stories I'd missed. First words, first steps, first everything. The anger hit me like a physical blow. You had no right, I said, my voice harder than I intended. You had no right to make that decision for me. I know. I would have been there, Shelley. I would have been there for everything. I know that now, she said quietly. But back then, all I saw was a man who was already married to his job. I was afraid you'd see Ashley as an obligation instead of a blessing. I turned to face her. So what's the plan? Do I just show up at your apartment and say hi? I'm her daddy. I was thinking we could start slower. Maybe you could come to dinner this weekend. As a friend of Mommy's. Let Ashley get to know you naturally. The idea terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. What if she doesn't like me? For the first time since she'd walked into my office, Shelley smiled. She will. You have the same terrible sense of humor. I picked up the paternity test results again, staring at the numbers that changed everything. I need time to process this, Shelley. It's huge. I understand. But Grant. She stood up, gathering her purse. Don't take too long. She's already 3.5. We've lost enough time already. After she left, I sat alone in my darkened office, holding the medical documents that proved I was a father. Outside, Portland hummed with evening traffic, people heading home to their families, their normal lives. I thought about Derek and his threats, about the corporate games and office politics that had seemed so important just hours ago. None of it mattered now. Nothing mattered except the little girl with my cowlick who was probably having dinner and wondering why Mommy seemed sad. I picked up my phone and started to dial Shelley's number. Then I stopped. This was too important for a phone call. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. It was time to meet my daughter. Saturday afternoon, I stood outside Shelley's apartment door with a bag of groceries and more nervousness than I'd felt since my first job interview. This wasn't just dinner. This was meeting my daughter as her father. Ashley opened the door before Shelley could reach it. Mr. Grant, she squealed, throwing her small arms around my legs. Mommy said you were coming for dinner. Hi there, kiddo, I said, my voice catching slightly. I brought some things to help cook. Kevin appeared in the doorway behind Ashley, his expression guarded but not hostile. Grant, he said, extending his hand. Thanks for coming. The handshake was firm, respectful. Two men trying to navigate an impossible situation with a little girl's happiness at stake. Dinner was surprisingly natural. Ashley dominated the conversation, telling me about her favorite cartoons, her best friend at daycare, and her recent discovery that elephants were the smartest animals in the zoo. Every gesture, every expression reminded me of myself at that age. Ashley, Shelley said gently as we finished eating, Mr. Grant is someone very special. He's actually your daddy. Ashley looked at me with those familiar green eyes, processing this information with a matter-of-fact acceptance only children possess. Are you going to live with us now? The question hung in the air like a challenge. I glanced at Kevin, then at Shelley, before focusing on my daughter. No, sweetheart, I said carefully. You live here with Mommy and Kevin, but I'm going to visit a lot, and we're going to spend time together. Would you like that? Ashley nodded enthusiastically. Can we go to the zoo? I want to show you the elephants. Absolutely. Next weekend, if that's okay with Mommy. Later, after Ashley had gone to bed, the three adults sat around the kitchen table with coffee, mapping out the future. I want to be part of her life, I said firmly, but I don't want to disrupt what you've built here. Kevin, you've been her father for 3 years. I'm not trying to replace that. Kevin nodded slowly. She calls me Daddy Kevin and talks about you as Daddy Grant. Kids are more adaptable than adults. What about legally? Shelley asked. We'll work out custody arrangements. Fair ones. I want Ashley to feel secure with both families. I looked at Kevin, and I want you to know that I respect what you've done for her. You stepped up when I didn't even know she existed. Kevin's expression softened. She's a special kid, worth any complications. As I drove home that night, my phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. Shelley had helped her type it. Thank you for dinner, Daddy Grant. See you at the zoo. I pulled over and sat in my car, overwhelmed by emotions I'd never experienced. I was a father, not just biologically, but in every way that mattered. And somehow, against all odds, this complicated situation was going to work. Derek was gone, his threats neutralized. Shelley and I were building something new. Not romance, but partnership in raising our daughter. Kevin was proving to be a better man than I'd given him credit for. Most importantly, Ashley was happy, secure, and loved by 3 adults who would move mountains to protect her future. 6 months later, I stood in the parking lot of Ashley's preschool, waiting for pickup time like any other father. The custody arrangement was working better than anyone had expected. Ashley spent weekends with me, weeknights with Shelley and Kevin, and somehow, this unconventional family was thriving. Daddy Grant. Ashley came running across the playground, her backpack bouncing behind her. Look what I made. She thrust a construction paper card into my hands. Happy Father's Day was written in crayon across the top, with a drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands. That's us at the zoo, she explained proudly. My throat tightened. It's perfect, sweetheart. Just perfect. I made one for Daddy Kevin too, she said matter-of-factly. Because I have 2 daddies, and that makes me special. As I buckled her in her car seat, I reflected on how much had changed. Derek had disappeared completely after his resignation, taking his threats and manipulations with him. Northwest Logistics was thriving without his toxic presence. Shelley had been promoted to Senior Operations Coordinator, a position that came with better benefits and more flexibility for Ashley's schedule. Kevin had proposed 3 months ago, and Shelley had said yes, but only after making sure I was comfortable with the arrangement. Grant, Kevin had said during our man-to-man conversation, I want you to know that Ashley having 2 fathers isn't a problem for me. It's a blessing. She'll never doubt that she's loved. The wedding was next month, and Ashley was beyond excited to be the flower girl. She'd asked if I would walk her down the aisle alongside Kevin, a request that had reduced all 3 adults to tears. Daddy Grant, Ashley said from her car seat as we drove toward my apartment, when I grow up, I want to work where you work so I can hire nice people like Mommy. I smiled in the rearview mirror. That sounds like a great plan, kiddo. My apartment had been transformed over the past 6 months. Ashley's artwork covered the refrigerator. Her toys filled a corner of the living room, and her small bed occupied what used to be my home office. Every trace of the corporate climber who'd prioritized work over relationships was gone, replaced by a man who left the office at 5 p.m. sharp every day. That evening, as I read Ashley her bedtime story, she looked up at me with those serious green eyes. Daddy Grant, are you happy now? Very happy, sweetheart. Why do you ask? Because before, when you came to Mommy's work, you looked sad, but now you smile all the time. I kissed her forehead, marveling at the wisdom of a 3-year-old. That's because I found something I didn't even know I was missing. What was that? You kiddo. I was missing you. As Ashley drifted off to sleep, I sat in the chair beside her bed, watching her peaceful face in the dim light. 5 years after our divorce, Shelley had walked into my office and changed everything. She'd given me the greatest gift imaginable. Not a second chance at love, but a first chance at being a father. Tomorrow is Saturday, which meant zoo day with Ashley. We had elephants to visit, ice cream to share, and memories to make. The corporate ladder could wait. My daughter was awake, and I had some serious catching up to do.